Hi, my name is Brad Aoki, and today I'm going to be talking about situational football for quarterbacks and thriving in the 2 minute drill. Just going to the table of contents of this presentation here, I'm going to do a quick background on my coaching experience, followed by some general 2 minute coaching points. Then we're going to get into what to expect defensively. So, coverage identifications for our quarterbacks. What are the stress points for those coverages? Then we're going to talk about some clock strategies and quarterback decision making in a 2 minute situation, some ending game plays to be aware of, and then finally, how we specifically practice it. Now, this is my background. I started out my college football career as a walk-on quarterback and wide receiver for USC. I played from 2019 to 2021. My last year in college, I worked as a student assistant, working with inside receivers. Following that, I had the opportunity to go to Colorado State University as a graduate assistant in 2023, where I was again working with receivers. My most recent stop was at the University of Southern California again, where I had the opportunity to work as a quality control analyst with the quarterbacks. I spent the last 2 years there, 2024 and 2025. And then most recently, I was hired by Alabama as a passing game specialist. So let's talk through some general 2 minute coaching points. So, what exactly is a 2 minute scenario? Right? It's a game situation in the last 2 minutes of the first half or end of the game in which the offense is attempting to score a field goal or a touchdown. So, understanding the situation is critical for our quarterback success, right? The situation is greater than all else. In this moment in the game, understanding the situation, understanding the rules of the 2 minute, and understanding how to operate in the 2 minute is more important than our play call, more important than the personnel that's on the field, more important than the defensive structure, right? And here are some of the questions and things that we focus and teach our quarterbacks to understand on any given play in a 2 minute situation, right? The first thing is understanding whether it's first half or end of the game. One big thing that we teach is that end of half 2 minute situations are a touchdown only mindset. And why do we teach that? Well, we never want to leave points on the board. And the difference between a field goal and a touchdown is a 4 point swing. So we always want to be aggressive. We never want to leave points on the table. We also want to know how much time is left. We're going to get into the quarterback decision making thought process a little bit later in this presentation, but understanding how much time is left and how many yards we need to go to score is going to affect how aggressive the quarterback needs to be with the football. We also need to know the score and how much we need to score because that's critical to understanding, again, how aggressive we need to be. And do we need a field goal to tie, field goal to win, touchdown to tie, touchdown to win? All that's critical. And then finally, how many timeouts does each team have? Because, each the timeout situation is going to affect decision making on both sides of the ball. What the defense might do and what we can do on offense is often predicated on how many timeouts we have. So, this is the most important slide in the entire of the presentation. If you, as the viewer, get nothing else out of this presentation but this slide, that's fine. Um, Taking a look at all FBS fourth quarter 2 minute drives, which I was able to actually pull using our analytics department at the University of Southern California. The average score percentage in a 2 minute situation is 32%. So about one in every three 2 minute situations end in a offensive score. However, if you get an explosive or a gain of 20 plus during that drive, your chances of scoring increase to almost 70%. However, if you take a sack during the drive, right, your scoring percentage drops to 20%. So it goes from 1 in 3 to 1 in 5 chance of scoring. So we always show our quarterbacks this stat because it tells them the importance of explosives and the importance of avoiding sacks and negative plays at 2 minutes. So some things to expect in 2 minutes. So these are some general things we tell the quarterbacks, hey, from a super 1,000 foot level, super high level thought process, here are some things that you can expect in 2 minute situations. One of those is crowd noise, right? Regardless of whether you're home or away, you're going to get crowd noise in 2 minutes because the crowd's going to tend to get rowdy because it's the most important point of the game. Another thing to be aware of is the pass rush. In 2 minute situations, you're going to have a pass first mentality, a drop back pass mentality. So oftentimes defenses are going to pin the ears back and rush at the passer. Now, one thing to be aware of for the quarterback is that pass rush is going to be strongest early in the series, right? But as the series goes on and we're tempoing, there's a lack of substitutions, the defense is going to start wearing down. So for the quarterback understanding this, they're going to have to know, okay, well, I might have to get the ball out faster early in the series, but as the series goes on and these guys start getting tired, I might have more time to progress. And then finally, have an understanding of the opponent's MO, right? Understanding what is the defense's identity. Are they a zone team? Are they a pressure team? what points of the field do they like to play tighter man coverage? And that's critical for success as a quarterback because we always want to have the answers to the test when we play the game. You want to be the most prepared unit on the field, and you want to know what the defense is going to do before they even do it. So let's talk through some clock stoppage rules. And at the end of the day, it's critical for the quarterback to understand what stops the clock and then when the clock is starting back up again so that they can operate at their optimal, ability. At our level, we have coach to player. So we're able to tell the quarterback directly, hey, incomplete stops the clock here, or hey, the clock's going to start on the referee's signal here. But, at lower levels of football, you might not necessarily have that. The other thing to be aware of, these are high pressure situations, and you would always prefer a quarterback to be able to fall back on his training and know these situations by heart rather than having to rely on, did he hear what I said? Was he processing what I said in that high pressure moment? So some situations that stop the clock, right? Incomplete passes or spikes, timeouts with a 2-minute warning, penalties, with the 10-second runoff rule, which we'll get into here in a second. And then if an offense gains the first down, but only till the chains are set. And then if a ball or player goes out of bounds. Now, it's often more important even for the quarterback to understand when the clock starts back up again, because that's going to dictate how he operates pre-snap. And, for quarterbacks, pre-snap operation is critical. But if we're starting the ball on the snap, if the clock is starting on the snap here, the quarterback can be a lot more deliberate in his pre-snap operation. He can go through fake claps. He can really, take his time identifying defenses. We can have motions. We can kill plays, all of that stuff, because the clock stopped. We don't need to worry about it starting. So some of these situations include incomplete passes, any call timeout or 2-minute warnings, any out of bounds play, or defensive penalty. Now, the one that the quarterback really has to be aware of is when the clock's starting on the referee's signal, because in these situations, now the quarterback has to operate very quickly. We can't dilly dally between plays. We have to make sure that the skill players are hustling back to their alignments. We have to make sure everyone's set. We have to make sure everyone's on the ball. We have to know we can't audible plays. We have to know we can't motion. All that stuff is super important. So some situations where the clock is going to start on the referee's signal include first downs, offensive penalties, plus any enforced 10-second runoffs, a measurement for a first down play that ends in bounds, and a fumble that goes forward out of bounds. So really any sort of thing that kind of gets tackled in the field of play or kind of moving forward, that's going to be a situation where, hey, this is going to start on the referee signal. Us as a quarterback, we have to be ready to snap the ball here quickly. So talking to the 10-second runoff rule. So what exactly is the 10-second runoff rule? Well, this occurs if the offense is called for a stoppage with the clock running under 1 minute. And it's important for us to understand common 10-second runoff causes because oftentimes these are things that are controlled by the quarterback, right? One of the most common ones is a pre-snap penalty, right? Something like a illegal formation or illegal procedure penalty, right? The quarterback has to be aware of, hey, do I have everyone on that needs to be on the line of scrimmage? Are they on? Do we have guys covered up? Are we in a legal formation? Is everyone set? All those things, right? That quick second the quarterback takes to make sure that everything is okay can help preserve 10 extra seconds and prevent a penalty. Injury timeouts are unfortunately not something we can control. But this last one here, intentional grounding, is, right? And we talked about earlier at the top of this presentation the importance of avoiding sacks. And an intentional grounding is no different than a sack. We're going to lose the yards, we're going to lose the down, just like we would on a sack, and we get a 10-second runoff. So it's critical for the quarterback to know that I cannot have an intentional grounding penalty, right? I have to get the ball past the line of scrimmage. If I'm in the pocket, I need to make sure there's a receiver in the area. If I'm trying to throw this away, most important thing, right? We're trying to attack the holes of the defense. Now, one thing to be aware of, I got these numbers from our analytics department at the University of Southern California. They did a great job of pulling these numbers. This is all of the coverage calls in 2-minute scenarios from 2025. But when you look at the bar graph, there's really no change between 2-minute calls and open field calls. There's a slight uptick in cover 2-man, but everything else is pretty much the same as the open field. And because of that information, we tell the quarterbacks, well, your coverage ID tools are no different than they're going to be in normal D&D scenarios. You're really going to have to ID coverages the same way you do as you do in the open field. You may have to operate a little quicker here because of the time scenarios, but there's really no difference from a thought process standpoint. So what do we teach the quarterback from a defensive stand protocol? We always teach the quarterback to start inside and work out and back. So we're always starting with the box count, the front structure, right? Like, how is the O line IDing the protection? Is there a mugger? Are there any defenders I got to be hot off of? What's the front structure? Does anything in the protection need to be flipped or killed? Then we kind of progress outward to our overhangs, because that's going to tell us, hey, where's the nickel defender line? Apex or outside, right? Apex, it's probably a zone look. If he's outside, possibly a man look, right? And if he's inside, is there a stack? Is this a possible edge pressure look? Next, we move back to our safety shell, right? And that's pretty critical because that's going to teach us, hey, is the middle field open? Is the middle field closed? Where's the boundary safety, right? What's the depth and width of the safety? What's their demeanor? Is there a tilt? Are they rotated? And then finally, right, just before the snap, we want to take a peek at their corners, right? Because oftentimes defenses, they like to play around with press bail and stuff. So we always want to peek at our corners last to see if we have, hey, is there a potential one-on-one matchup we want to take? So we're always looking at depth, whether they're pressed or off, eyes, whether that's inside or zone, or if it's on the receiver, indicating man coverage. And then finally, whether we have inside or outside leverage. So here's a couple of examples, right? Taking a look at, what is the box structure, right? Any situations with muggers, taking a look at the overhang, where are they aligned relative to us, right? Is that nickel outside indicating man coverage, no threat of edge pressure? Or is the apex possibly zone coverage, possibly edge pressure? Taking a look at the safety shell, right? If it's middle field open, we can expect some form of 0-2-4-6, right? If it's closed, probably expecting 1 or 3. And then looking at the corners, are they pressed? Are they off? Do I have free access? Do I like my one-on-one matchup? All that stuff is really important. So when we talk about the shell refers to the overall structure of the secondary, right? Their relationship with one another gives us a pre-snap indication of the coverage. The safety structure is going to be one of the last things. We talked about that. We start from bottom up and work our way up. So it's going to be one of the last thing the quarterback's going to see pre-snap.